Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to Proper Madness. So today we're going to be discussing something called self-empathy. Self-empathy is something that I have struggled to develop most of my life due to having a pretty negative inner critic and a negative self-talk dialogue within my own mind. And much of that actually contributed to my own depression. So today I'm just going to be touching on that. I did a YouTube video on negative self-talk and your inner critic and how to combat that, so that is up on my channel. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel and be sure to follow this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it. Self-empathy, I think, is something that isn't talked about too often. For a really long time, I didn't have a lot of compassion for myself. And in turn, what was happening is I didn't have compassion for other people. A lot of the times what we have left unhealed, we will project onto others. I feel like a lot of us know this to an extent, because if you ever feel like someone is picking on you or talking to you in a negative way, and mentally you're like, where is this coming from? This isn't my issue. This sounds like a you thing. What are you doing? That is mostly why. But the shoe can also be on the other foot, where we can do the same to other people, and I think we have to hold ourselves accountable with that, but in a compassionate way. So, for most of my life, I was very, very overcritical of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, in my career, my finances, what have you. So I would constantly always be nitpicking at things that I would do wrong. And in doing that, it contributed a lot to some pretty poor inner dialogue that I had. And then in turn, I'd notice that I was being very overly critical and judgmental to other people. My family will actually always tell me that sometimes the way I say things can come across very condescending or judgmental. With them specifically, I've never really heard that from anyone else in my life. When they tell me that, I always used to get very defensive and go, no, I'm nice. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm not thinking that anything judgmental. I don't feel like I'm judging you. I don't feel like I'm better than you, so I don't know why I keep coming across this way. Fast forward to now, I realized that much of my own behavior that I was directing outwardly was very much because of how I was feeling about myself inwardly. So even though I didn't mean to come across judgmental or condescending, my own thoughts and compassion for myself were lacking. Because I really stopped and went, oh, I judge myself all the time. If I make a mistake, if I gain a little bit of weight, if I eat something I'm not supposed to eat, if I make a mistake, if I get into a car accident, if I say the wrong thing, if I hurt someone's feelings, I will sit there and judge myself and tell myself off and criticize myself to a degree that is very, very unhealthy. And with that, unfortunately, I didn't have any compassion left for myself. I didn't give myself any grace through any of my mistakes. I was consciously recognizing my mistakes and how I need to improve as a person, but subconsciously I still very much felt like I was unworthy of compassion. I think a lot of times when we struggle to give ourselves empathy and we seem to somehow give it to everyone else, it's because we feel like we don't deserve it. So for me, that's where it came from. It came from me just not thinking that I deserved compassion or empathy because of all the mistakes that I had ever made. And if you've seen my self-sabotaging video, then you know what I'm going to say is we're not supposed to be perfect. We're not supposed to not make mistakes at every turn of the corner. What matters is that we're learning from them and that we're taking accountability and recognizing it and confronting it, but not in an abrasive way. I think when we make mistakes, it's like, I've made a mistake. I must take the most extreme measure route possible to reprimand this and correct it. And you don't. Oh, God, do you like my little accent there? And we don't need to take it to that extreme. It's a lot of reparenting of ourselves. If we had parents that when we made a mistake when we were younger, it was seen as like this really, really big, grand ordeal, and they'd basically tell us that we were awful, that we shouldn't have made that mistake, that we can never make that mistake again, then yeah, as you get older, that is going to stick with your subconscious, unfortunately, and the empathy that you have for yourself is going to be stemmed off of the empathy that you were given as a kid. I feel like if I give myself empathy, then I'm giving myself room to make more mistakes. And if you think about it, there's nothing wrong with that. We need room to make mistakes. But I've been so fixated on this idea of perfectionism and never making mistakes that I would judge myself anytime I would mess up in any way. Even something as simple as if I'm working out at the gym and I embarrass myself in some way, I'll get really down on myself and go, you shouldn't have done that. You should know better. You've been training for 7 or 8 years. You know what it's like. Like, why did you do that? You're dumb. You're this. You're that. That sounds a little rough, right? But a lot of us talk to ourselves that way in our own heads. And we don't stop and go, okay, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. We embarrassed ourselves. Who cares? Who cares? Let's just pick it up, move on, learn the next time, and not do it again. And if we do it again, then we'll just keep learning. You know, we have to be empathetic through ourselves, even through healing from our past traumas. Like, we think that if we heal from our past traumas and we keep repeating the exact same mistake, that there's something wrong with us and that we don't deserve to heal. You know, that's a lot of the times how I had felt, is I would go through healing from some of my traumas from my childhood and then keep kind of making a similar mistake. And because I kept making the same mistake, I go, well, I already learned from this. Why am I doing this? And I beat myself up. And even just the tonation of how I talked to myself was very judgmental and very harsh. There was no compassion behind it. It was just always like, you should have known better because I know better. But who is the I that knows better in my head, you know? That condescending tone that I would always give myself just didn't make any sense. So when you're healing from whatever you're healing from, and you're going through whatever you're going through, give yourself grace, you know? It's going to take time. Healing isn't linear. And if you go backwards, you go backwards. But hey, you go backwards because there's something you haven't quite figured out yet. We're not supposed to have it all figured out. We're not supposed to know how to heal. We're not supposed to know what the right thing to do is at all times. We're supposed to make mistakes. We're supposed to fuck up. We're supposed to fall on our faces. We're supposed to do that. Like when you got on a bike as a kid and you fell over, did you beat yourself up and go, I should have known? No, because you didn't know what you didn't know. So what? So then what? So then you're just going to stop yourself from making mistakes? Well, if you stop yourself from making mistakes, then you may as well not even get back on the bike. And self-compassion looks like you fall off the bike and you go, hey, no problem. You know what? We fell. Let's get back on and not do what we did last time and learn from it. Okay, well, you fell again. You kind of did the same thing as last time. That's fine. We haven't learned yet. Let's just keep going and keep trying and keep progressing. If we can't give compassion to ourselves, how do we expect to give authentic compassion to other people? Because you can still give compassion and empathy to other people to an extent, even if you don't give it to yourself, but it's not authentic and genuine, you know. And it's not in a malicious way. It's just, we always hear that saying, how do you expect to love someone else if you don't know how to love yourself? I saw this TikTok yesterday of this woman, and she was like, hey, goddess. And this goes for any gender. And the way she said it is, as she said, think of yourself as a really, really good friend that you've known for years. When your friend gains weight, do you love them less? When your friend fails, do you love them less? When your friend makes a mistake, do you love them less? When your friend doesn't eat enough, doesn't drink enough water, is tired, is burnt out, isn't successful enough, do you love them less? No. So then why do you do that to yourself? And that TikTok just sat with me yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, I'm just so hard on myself all the time. And I think a lot of us are. There's a balance, like not being hard on yourself doesn't mean that you'll become lazy. That is such a myth. If you're just hard on yourself 24/7 for making any sort of mistake, how do you expect to, then when you do succeed, are you going to celebrate your wins? Is your success in any way of your life going to be the validation of your self-compassion? That doesn't make sense. When you're holding an infant in your arms and they spit up or make a mess, do you yell at them and say it's all your fault? You know what I mean? We're so hard on ourselves generally. And for me, with my depression, that was most of it, is just being very, very hard on myself and overtly critiquing myself and having no empathy and compassion for anything, even my wins. Even if I did succeed, I was like, well, then how can I do better? Instead of stopping and praising myself and saying, hey, good job. Now let's see if we can do something more. But then not putting so much pressure on yourself if you don't. I feel like that hustle mindset has to have compassion behind it. You can hustle and work hard and have compassion for yourself. It's a very possible thing. A little bit of a shorter episode for you guys today, but it's something I've been thinking about, something I've been dealing with, and I thought it'd be helpful to share. So today, how can you show yourself some compassion?